Strength versus dexterity, which is the better stat? Much like my faith versus intelligence video, it doesn't matter. Literally use whatever you want. But for the sake of having an opinion, I'm going to answer this question. We're going to have a bunch of different categories, have them fight each other, and see who ends up coming out on top. As always, do follow me on Twitch because I should be live by the time this video is out. And do subscribe because I noticed a lot of you guys haven't actually subscribed. What's up with that? It's fine. You can do what you want. So what benefits do you gain when leveling strength or dexterity? Now, obviously, outside of your weapons is getting more damage with their respective scalings. With strength, leveling it actually does boost your physical damage negation, which is very nice for tank type builds. However, in most cases, strength weapons tend to just weigh more than dexterity based weapons. So in most cases, you just have more equipment load with these dex based weapons, which means you can have heavier types of armor, which result in more damage negation and sometimes even more poise and elemental damage negation as well. So it's not really as much of a benefit as it is something to help these strength based weapons because they tend to be so heavy. Now, as for leveling dexterity, there are a few different benefits that you do gain. One is that you do get a decrease in fall damage. 2, you won't be knocked off your horse as easily, and you do get an increase in casting speed. So as for the fall damage, not much of a benefit in this game because fall damage is kind of stupid. Being able to stay on your horse longer is a nice benefit. I wish leveling strength meant that you actually had more poise on your horse or more health or something. It would be nice, but there's nothing there for strength. But definitely the best part of leveling dexterity is the increase you do get to casting speed. It definitely makes battle mage builds a lot better with dexterity, despite there not having like a dedicated seal or a staff as there is for like strength. So I guess it kind of balances out, but I'll probably end up leaning more towards dexterity in terms of the added benefits that they actually do gain. Now, getting into the variety of the weapons themselves, I did some counting, which I know is very hard to believe, but I did count 116 dexterity-based weapons and 117 strength-based weapons. Now, things that I did not really count at all, things that have quality scalings, or some things that had quality scalings, or stuff that has had bad strength and dexterity scalings, didn't count those. So 116 to 117 is what I counted. So pretty even. Good job for FromSoft actually making a balanced list. As for things that did have differing movesets though, I just found out that dexterity just tends to just have more stuff or more of a chance to have a differing moveset. So things like the Guardian Swordspear, the Cross Naginata, things of that nature, they're just more dominated with dexterity, which is kind of unfortunate. As for stuff that had more elemental damage, 41 to 37, so it's pretty balanced in that regard as well. Good different types of elemental damage that these weapons do actually get. As for physical damage, didn't really count standard because that doesn't really offer any benefits or negatives at all. But as for strike damage, which is actually more associated with strength itself, counted 39 to 12, so there's no surprises there. As for slash, once again, this stat is actually more dominated by dexterity, and as it is right here, 47 to 19. Actually surprising that strength actually do get 19 strength-based options for slash. But as for piercing, which is actually more of a neutral stat, doesn't really associate it with one or the other, I counted 54 for strength and 78 for dexterity. So dexterity probably has to take out variety because it does have more things in terms of moveset and more piercing damage weapons as well. So taking all that into account, probably give that point to dex. Now, which stat has the better Ash of War options? Now, trying to compare strength to dexterity-based ashes is kind of stupid because obviously wet blades exist and you can infuse any single Ash of War to any particular stat. However, there are certain ashes out there that only scale of certain stats. These ones on screen right now are the ones that actually do that for strength and dexterity. Now, what these all have in common is that they don't actually hit with the weapon itself. So therefore, they're just going to scale primarily off strength and dexterity. Yellow in this instance is for dexterity and red is for strength. So based on this list, I just like the dexterity-based ones more. However, there is one thing we did not keep into account and one thing that FromSoft didn't actually keep into account as well. In that all of these Ash of War options, doesn't matter what weapon they're actually infused onto, get the exact same animations and exact same speeds. So looking at something like Wild Strikes, Giant Hunt, and Lion's Claw, the best, probably the best Ash of War options in the game, having them infused onto strength-based weapons that does have more range and more damage is just going to be much better than infusing them onto dexterity-based weapons. So something like Giant's Hunt infused onto a Colossal weapon is going to be better than Giant's Hunt infused onto a Spear. Sword Dance infused onto a Great Axe, it's just going to be Sword Dance infused onto a Curved Sword. It just makes sense. So just inherently strength-based options that is better paired with Ashes of War. So comparing pure strength to pure dexterity. Now what I mean by this is when you put all of your points into that one particular stat, obviously you level up your vigor and your endurance as well. That's just a must. But on screen right now is my top 20 strength and dexterity weapons list. Now, the yellow is for dexterity and the red is for strength. Now, they're just the weapons that only have strength and dexterity scalings themselves. Now, it is a pretty balanced list. I'm neither here nor there as to which options I actually prefer over the other, but when talking about pure builds themselves, I'd probably just rather have the strength-based options, because when I have a strength type build, I just go all into strength because you just do a way more damage, you have way more one-shot potential, and when you two-hand your weapon, you just add way more strength to your weapon itself, so obviously that mechanic itself just definitely benefits of actually using a strength-based build. When I use dexterity, I just tend to actually pair it alongside faith and intelligence to use like weapon buffs, because it ends up just doing more damage in that regard. But yeah, definitely pure strength is the way to go. So which stat has better synergy with other stats? So which one pairs better with faith, intelligence, and arcane? Now on screen right now is my top 10 weapons list with things that actually do get faith, intelligence, or arcane scalings, but still primarily scale with strength or dexterity. Hence why you don't see something like Moonveil or Blasphemous Blade on this list, because I just much rather have faith or intelligence to just boost the Ash of War damage itself. But yeah, as you can tell, the strength weapons definitely dominate this list itself. However, looking back at the other list, as I was saying before, when I have the dexterity-based options here, I just like to pair it alongside a faith and intelligence-based build, because you just get faster casting speeds, because when you level up your dexterity, you just get a boost in that regard, and you get to have things like weapon buffs as well, and they pair very nicely with dexterity-based builds also, which is very handy. And when turning your weapon, it only boosts your strength, which actually only boosts your physical damage, so in that regard, I guess this dexterity has better synergy with faith, intelligence, and arcane. However, we do have to keep in mind that when you look at the seal and staff options, there's no like strength, actually there's no dexterity based on, but there is something like the claw mark seal, which you actually do get for strength based builds. However, one thing to keep in mind with the claw mark seal is that healing spells and weapon buffs aren't going to really benefit off that, because they don't actually scale off incant scaling, they scale off the faith scaling itself. So using weapon buffs or healing spells are just not good with the claw mark seal. So that's like another reason as to why they're just not as good. So I'd probably end up going more towards dexterity when talking about better synergy with the other stats. So which stat is best for early game? Now, early game is what I consider anything before the Altars Plateau. Yes, I know you can go to the Altars Plateau pretty early on, but people are on their first, even their second playthrough, aren't really going to be doing that. But looking on screen right now, this is my top 20 and top 10 weapons list that we just covered. And these are all the ones that you actually get early game. Now, this still is a pretty decent amount, but I think I see more dexterity-based options compared to the strength-based options. So that's probably more of a benefit in that regard. And one thing you actually do got to keep in mind as well is that the strength-based options tend to just have very high requirements in terms of like having high strength requirements. Yes, you can turn your weapon to like make it even less, but that still has to force you to put, you know, more points into strength itself, which early game you definitely want to put most of your points into vigor and endurance, because you're not going to really benefit much of putting your points into strength and dexterity when you have lower upgraded weapons. So yeah, I'd probably lean more towards dexterity as for early game. So which one is better for end game PvE? Now, this is just going to be completely subjective. It's just going to be my opinion. There's going to be no objective truths listed in this category whatsoever. I'm not even going to give a point for this thing, because I'm just going to be like summarizing of what I just already went over. So basically, for dexterity, you just get better movesets, quicker movesets typically. You get better synergy with spells. As for strength-based options, they tend to be more slower, more risk involved in that regard, but it does counteract by having more physical damage negation when leveling strength. You get harder hitting weapons that have more one-shot potential, more stagger and posture damage as well, which I guess can be pretty good for endgame, or pretty much throughout the entire game in general, because, you know, being able to stop enemies in their tracks and posture break them means you can do a whole bunch more damage right afterwards, which is very, very nice. It's much better than actually trying to do parry and riposts in this game, because posture breaking is really, really nice. But I think dexterity might be better if you're like newer to the game, because you have lower recovery animations. You can like quickly attack. There's less risk involved as well using dex-based weapons. But yeah, I don't know, dude. Just pick what you want. Now, as for what is the best option for PvP, honestly, I don't want to have an opinion on this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. First, talking about invasions, here is my top 10, the yellow for dexterity, the red for strength. I promise I never intended for it to actually be this balanced, but it just worked out that way. But yeah, Bolt of Gransex is like probably the best option, because you can just cross map things, do a fuck ton of damage as well. Probably gonna be your best arena option also, because this is really, really good in that regard. But if I were to pick one or the other in PvP in general, I'd probably just end up picking strength, because you can do a bunch of quick attacks with strength type builds as well. Looking at things like the Great Lance or the crouching attacks of colossal weapons, or colossal swords, excuse me. Those things just do so much damage very quickly. And in invasions, you want to be able to like kill things very, very quickly. And I think that strength is going to be your best options, or best chance of actually one-shotting things. As for dueling, very similar in that regard to what I just said. But here's my top 10 itself. Definitely more strength-based as well. Vike's going to be the only like dex-based option in the top 5, and even then that's probably more of like a strength-based build when you think of it being like a Great Spear itself, because yeah, it's just going to be poking attacks and hard-hitting things that actually attack quickly itself, so which what poking attacks actually do. So yeah, I'm probably just going to go with strength in this one. It's going to pick the easy pick here in general, because spells themselves, although that dexterity have better synergy with spells aren't really that viable as you're going to go all into like intelligence or faith to maximize your damage. So yeah, don't really care for dexterity much in terms of PvP itself, although they can have pretty decent options as the ones that I've just listed on screen. So that pretty much concludes it for that one. Dexterity ended up winning. That's unfortunate. I wanted strength to win. Same thing happened with my faith versus intelligence video. I wanted faith to win. That ended up losing too. Nothing that I like ends up winning. That's terrible. But, you know, once again, just pick whatever you want to. It doesn't really matter. It was just something that I just did for fun. And so I can get a bunch of views, because why not? Your boy likes to sell out. As always, please do subscribe and follow me on Twitch as well. Should be live by the time this video is out. And please just let me know down below what type of videos you'd like to see next. Anyway, see you in the next one, guys. Bye.